Hello, my amazing artists, and welcome back. Today we are going to be exploring the material of watercolor and how it creates such vibrant and beautiful colors. Boys and girls, take a look at my examples and notice these white lines. Isn't that crazy? How can the lines stay white? Boys and girls, today we are going to begin our project by first creating these white lines with one of the materials you're going to need from home, which is glue. The other material that you're going to need today is found in your art packet, and this is a very textured and thick piece of paper. This piece of paper is special for watercolor because it's actually made out of cotton, which is very similar to the material that our clothing is made from. This will help the water soak into the paper and hold on to all of those colors we place on top. Now you'll notice, boys and girls, that one of my examples has very organic shapes on it, which are curvy and kind of wild looking. Another one of my examples has more geometric shapes on it, which are circles. Also notice that the circles are overlapping each other. Now, boys and girls, I'm going to leave it up to you today with creating whatever type of pattern or design you'd like on your paper. It may be even one that reminds you of something from real life. I think today I am going to actually do a scene from nature, or what's called a landscape. With your glue, we are going to be using it to draw, kind of like our pencil. So I'm going to start by first drawing some rolling hills with my glue. Take and draw some lines on your paper. Boys and girls, with your lines, make sure that your lines are connecting to create different shapes. These shapes are going to help keep our color inside of them when we use our wet and runny watercolor paint. Go slow and use your glue to create continuous lines. These rolling hills remind me of home, maybe a sun setting. Some fluffy clouds. The simpler your shapes and drawing, the easier it will be to draw with your glue bottle. If there's any places like this where your line is a bit interrupted, go ahead with your glue and go back and add a little bit more into those areas, making your lines nice and thick. They are going to be like the fence or the boundary for our watercolor paint. Okay, boys and girls, now comes the easiest part of our lesson. We are going to set our paper aside for about a day or two until our paper gets nice and dry and our glue is perfectly clear. You can notice that our glue is a bit white right now. That means it's nice and wet. Take a look at this one. I can still see that some of my glue is white. Some of it, though, is flat and clear. This part is dry, but this part is not, which means I need to wait a little bit longer until this is done and ready for me to paint. Once your glue is completely dry on your paper, we are now ready to add color with our watercolor. In your material envelope, you will find some plastic cups with different dried watercolor paint inside. You should have 4 different colors to experiment with. Additionally, you'll need a bowl or cup of water, and you'll also be able to find in your envelope a paintbrush. Let's take a look at how we can use our watercolor to add different color mixing to our shapes. So in each of my different shapes, I'm first going to add water. The reason I'm adding water is because the name of our paint, watercolor. Water comes first, which means it is the most important part of our recipe. Then I can take my paintbrush and gently wet the color inside my cup. We don't need a lot of color to make an awesome effect. Tap the color into the water you've placed down on your paper. I love watercolor because it's actually the lazy person's art. The water does all the work for us. It moves that color around, creating a different pattern. Experiment with putting two colors in the same space and seeing what happens when they dry. Each time you start a new shape, first add water without any color. This is called wet into wet technique. Wet into wet. So I'm putting wet down first, and then I'm going to wet my color, and then tap that wet paint into my wet surface. If you're finding that the color is not moving around very easily in your water, maybe your paper is a bit too dry. Take some water, tap it until that water moves around more. Like I said, watercolor is the lazy person's art because the water does all that hard work of making our painting beautiful. In fact, boys and girls, we want to use the brush as little as possible. I'm only going to use my brush to spread the water around first into that shape. I don't want to rub on my paper too much. When we rub and rub and rub our paper, sometimes it can start to peel away. After you have finished your watercolor painting and let your paper dry, the last and optional step that I'm going to give you, boys and girls, is to take some markers and add some patterns or line to your different shapes you've created. This can help to bring out the color and texture that our watercolor created in our work of art. Okay, boys and girls, have fun exploring and making your watercolor work of art.